I don't think anybody going to any war in history really knows what it's going to be like until they get there. I felt I was trained enough to meet any contingency. But the reality of it was pretty different. Now, as an officer, you got a lot more responsibility. In some ways, well, most ways, I felt ready. But it's different.
All right, Bob, we're just gonna talk about your life and time in the service. You ready?
Yep, ready as I'm gonna be. I did have a life before Vietnam, and it was quite an interesting life, actually. My father was career Air Force and fought in World War II. He was a fighter pilot, P-51s. And we moved around a lot. Even as a young person, beginning when I was 8 years old, I started experiencing other cultures. Most of my high school, except for the last 2 months, was spent in Tachikawa, Japan, and Misawa, Japan. Being in different cultures was a way of life. It also meant that it was difficult to understand commitment. So now I'm 25 years old. I wanted to serve. Vietnam was in more or less its infancy. Went to the Air Force recruiter, and he said, well, you just got too many dependents, you know. So I went back to the Marine Corps, and I said, I'm married, I have a child, and another child due in March. And they said, fine, sign up. That's really how I got in the Marine Corps. I started OCS in March of '66. I was assigned to a Provisional Rifle Company. And this Provisional Company was, the purpose was to be on the far northwest side of Da Nang area. We had 3 platoons, and I was the platoon leader of one of them. I'd only been there a week, and I was out. It was my platoon's turn to be on the bunkers. It was nighttime, and I was staying in the command bunker, and one of the other bunkers called in to the command bunker to us and said he thought he heard some noise out by the fence. And we did thought we heard something. So we all got on the ground, crawling. We could hear something, but we couldn't see anything. So we just laid there on the ground. Sure enough, we could see these 2 bumps, you know, moving along the ground. So we got up and we started running after them, and they got up and they started running. And, you know, I really got from here to the wall over there to that bunker, and I was close enough now, a little closer than that, and I just started banging away with that shotgun and got them both. They had charges with them, sapper charges, and they ended up almost touching the bunker. It was the first week, and, you know, I knew it was going to be interesting. We weren't engaged in large company movements or battalion movements. We were just on our own out there. But when you're there, your world is very small. The patrol you're going on, you know, trying to stay awake all night in the jungle, or whatever. The platoon that's on the bunkers, they're out there for 24 hours, and so they're occupied. I mean, they're not just not sitting in the bunkers, they're repairing, replacing sandbags, or doing this, they're doing that. It's, your world's very narrow, very narrow. I had a point man who was, he was called Lucky. So we were on patrol, and another patrol, and we were moving through some jungle and came out of the jungle a little bit to make a cross clearing, but it wasn't a very big clearing. It wasn't like that, like a rice paddy or something. It was just, and a sniper shot him in the jaw. I was holding his hand, and he didn't say any, nor the corpsman came. The only thing he had done is he'd reached up and grabbed his tongue. He died. They don't train you for that. When you're in combat, you're much more affected when you have people you're responsible for wounded, hurt, killed, much more. Staff Sergeant Henry Sparks was my platoon sergeant, the first platoon sergeant when I got to Vietnam. The picture on the left, you can tell us when I pretty much first got there, we both, because I still got a white t-shirt on. But we bonded pretty quick, and he took good care of me for the time he was there. He really did. I owe him a lot. We established quite a rapport because we both had some connections to Oklahoma. We both smoked the pipe, but everybody respected him. Sergeant Sparks was killed in Vietnam. He wasn't killed the time he was with me. He went back for a third tour, and he was just killed in a firefight in, I think it was February of '69. On the wall, it just says, killed in action.
You know, I was in Washington, D.C. last September, and I went to the wall, and it was a humbling experience. But, I've talked to a lot of Vietnam veterans, and they've lost friends, but I never really knew any of their names. But when I went there was one particular name that stuck out, and it was Henry Sparks. And I found it. And I actually
well, good for you.
Got this for you.
No.
I don't know if you actually have one.
I don't have a rubbing, I have a picture of his thing. You actually looked it up.
I looked it up and I found him and I got that for you last September.
That's it. While in Vietnam, I had become aware of and worked with the recon aspects of Recon Battalion in the Marine Corps, and also what's called Force Recon companies. 5th Force Recon, which is part of the reactivated 5th Marine Division, they were looking for some platoon leaders. So I came back, and I was stationed at Camp Pendleton, and that was a totally new world. So over the period of the next year, I went to UDT school, underwater demolition, a team training, which is the forerunners of the SEALs. I also went to jump school at Fort Benning, the Army jump school at Fort Benning. We jumped in the water, we jumped at night, we jumped carrying a lot of stuff. We jumped out of helicopters, we jumped out of, everything from C-130s. We were the first ones that jumped out of the OV-10. The OV-10 Force Recon was considered the best of the best of the best. Somebody at 5th Force Recon came up with the idea that we ought to jump with our big with the big twin 90 cubic foot scuba tanks. We were going to do an experimental jump with using this rig, but they needed volunteers because it had never been done before. They rigged us up, and we were going to jump over Lake O'Neill in Camp Pendleton, not out in the ocean. So I stepped off. I looked back, and my chute had started streaming. When I first looked, it was open, but then I looked again, it was streaming. And I pulled the handle of the reserve, and the chute drops out, pops out, but it doesn't go out, it just drops between my legs. So they both were like 2/3 or 3/4 filled when I hit the water. And I hit the water on my back because the one chute was pulling me this way and the other chute was like that. So I was like this. So I went into the water and sunk to the bottom, and both chutes filled with water. But fortunately the air was on, and the double hose thing, it was right up here. I didn't have a mask, my mask was gone, so I just pulled the mouthpiece down and just sat there and breathed until the safety divers got to me. So to my knowledge, Sergeant Deutsch and I are the only ones that ever dumb enough to do it. But it's also one of the things I'm most proud of, surviving that. We worked on submarines, the old diesel submarines, World War II submarines, and we would do several things with them. We had our big rubber boats that we would paddle into shore. So another thing we did that was unusual, it was unique to Force Recon, is we locked out of submarines. It was a good way for small teams to be inserted without ever being on the surface. Locking in of the submarines, so you can see it, but see the cables running down from up by the periscope mountings to the forward escape trunk. And that's where we would pop out of, and the boat would be submerged, sub would be submerged, and the scuba tanks would be up there at the top of those cables. And we just use it to get back in the boat. Jump school, scuba school, mountain warfare, climbing mountains, and it's all part of what I got from the Marine Corps. These awards are just earned ribbons from just time in service, and where you went is just really gives a history of your time in the service. There's nothing particular in here that says I was brave or I was a hero or I was a coward and ran. It's just that I served. I'm absolutely proud of what's in here. There was a lot of things that I took from the Marine Corps that helped me in my work, organization, punctuality, so forth. But the Marine taught me a lot about commitment. You know, the Air Force doesn't say once, I'm a pilot, always a Air Force guy, whatever they say, or the Navy they never say once a swabby, always a swabby, and the Army doesn't ever say once a doggy, always a doggy. But once Marine, always Marine, and it's because we earn it. You gotta earn it. Simplify.